The Handkerchief by Great 78. Chapter 99. Hagrid's Heists, Hand of Glory, and the Weasel's True Colours. Ginny's plan for extracting the sword of Gryffindor from Snape's office sounded simple enough. In fact, it actually drew from elements of his own plan to bring the Death Eaters into the castle, and for that, Draco was both proud and a bit worried. If the wrong person found them, it was a beating, a Cruciatus curse, or possibly something far worse. The next night, whilst everyone else was busy with the Halloween feast, 4 figures dressed in black met outside of an unassuming gargoyle on the 3rd floor. "Not sure why you two even bother wearing black," Neville said in a half-joking manner to Draco and Luna. "Between your hair and your skin colouring, you're both practically glowing." Draco looked at Luna, at her blonde hair, curling and wild, where Draco's was straight and smooth, at her large, glowing eyes, pale and silvery in the torchlight. She seemed, as she always did, uncomfortably familiar.
"Well, that makes sense. We're cousins, you know,"
the witch said simply. Draco was dumbstruck. "We are?"
"Yes. Our great-grandmothers were sisters, on our mothers' sides."
Luna seemed unfazed by the effect that this revelation had upon the group.
"Well, shall we get started?"
After a moment's silence they turned to the gargoyle. "Wiggentree," Draco breathed quietly. The gargoyle swung to the side, and the moving spiral staircase came into view. Draco passed Neville the Hand of Glory. "I want that back in one piece," he whispered to the other wizard. "Please, don't share with me the gross shit you get up to with this thing," Neville whispered back emphatically. "What? Are you looking to borrow it?" "Can both of you drop the dick-rubbing jokes for 5 minutes?" Ginny hissed at them, and both wizards coloured in embarrassment, chagrined. "Let's go." The ginger witch withdrew a small, dark pouch from her skirt pocket. Draco recognized the Peruvian instant darkness powder. It was a necessity to avoid the portraits knowing or seeing anything and being able to identify them. Draco stood a sentry outside the gargoyle, whilst the other 3 went up the stairs, hands on each other's shoulders to feel where they were going, Neville in the lead. The gargoyle swung shut and Draco was alone, but not for long. Within seconds, a familiar swish of cloak was hurrying towards him. "What is the meaning of this?" Snape hissed as he neared. "We are only just beginning the Halloween feast. I have been looking forward to this roasted pumpkin soup all year. And now this!" Snape gestured to the gargoyle. "I take it you have detection charms in place?" Draco asked tiredly. "Get your head out of your ass, Draco. Of course I do," Snape snapped. "Who is up there, and what do they think they're doing?" "Neville Longbottom, Ginny Weasley, and Luna Lovegood. They're trying to steal the sword of Gryffindor. It was left to Potter in Dumbledore's will, and they think that he should have it, and that you shouldn't." Snape rubbed his temple tiredly. "I get so tired of all this. This sodding Gryffindor high-mindedness." He huffed a breath. "The courage, the bravery, the absolute and sheer stupidity." These last words were said with utmost contempt. "And it isn't even the real sword, the one they're trying to steal." Snape moaned to himself. Then he looked up in alarm, as if realizing that he had just confessed this to Draco. He pointed his wand at the younger wizard and cast a non-verbal spell before Draco could even realize what was happening. Draco felt his tongue press firmly into the bottom of his jaw. The pressure released after a second, and Draco realized that he had just had a secrecy bond placed upon him yet again. He would not be able to reveal to anyone that the sword inside the headmaster's office was a fake. "Fuck," Draco said, staring at Snape with a murderous look. "What did you do that for?" "No one can know that the sword on display is a fake. If word gets out to the wrong people, well, it could endanger more than just you, me, and Potter. In other words, if Voldemort or his followers found out, there would be hell to pay, and more plans than this ruined. They'll be back down here very quickly, you realize, Draco said in an accusatory tone. What's your big idea, then? The stone gargoyle was beginning to slide sideways. Snape's eyes widened, then he pointed his wand at Draco yet again. In an instant, Draco's hands were bound in front of him with a magical rope. The stairs appeared once more, and the three of them were hurrying down, Luna carrying the Hand of Glory, and Ginny and Neville carrying one end each of the large display case, holding the sword of Gryffindor. "We couldn't get the case open, so we just brought—" But Neville's words were cut off at the sight of him. "You just brought a school artifact that you have no business in stealing, thinking you would take it for your own. Is that correct, Mr. Longbottom, Miss Weasley, Miss Lovegood?" The other three looked at each other in fear. Students had been cruciated repeatedly by Amicus for far less than this. "I'm afraid this has earned you a detention. You will report to Professor Hagrid tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. Do not go to the Great Hall for your meal. You will go directly there. Is that understood?" Wait, was the punishment that they had to endure Hagrid's cooking? Because Draco could believe that. Hagrid's cooking was rather frightful. "You will be performing whatever tasks that the Professor comes up with. I am certain they will not be pleasant. Perhaps another trip into the Forbidden Forest for you too?" Snape raised an eyebrow at Neville and Draco, and grinned waspishly. No doubt both of them remembered their first trip into the Forbidden Forest together many years ago. Snape pointed his wand at the glass case and levitated it back upstairs. "Everyone, back to your common rooms. No Halloween feast, and there will be no Hogsmeade visits for you tomorrow either." The ropes disappeared from Draco's wrists, and Snape swished back the way he'd come, heading back towards the Great Hall. "Shit, what kind of crazy nonsense do you think Hagrid is going to come up with?" Ginny asked. "Our first year, we had to go looking for injured unicorns." Neville shivered to himself. "Ooh, perhaps we'll be caring for the Thestrals." Luna smiled happily to herself. It was Draco's turn to shiver. He and the other wizard exchanged a grim look. "Sounds great," Draco said sarcastically. "Well, thanks for such a lovely evening. I'll see you all tomorrow at 6. He took his Hand of Glory back from Luna and started down the corridor in the same direction in which Snape had disappeared. "Ted says he met up with another wizard on the run. Steen Thomas. Wasn't he an owl, yeah? A Gryffindor?" Theo said as he, Draco, and Blaise worked out in Classroom 4. "Yes, he's either Muggle-born or a half-blood. He's a pretty good bloke," Blaise said. "Yeah, Ted said he noticed him because Thomas was trying to transfigure a handful of rocks into some Muggle money in a pub in Yorkshire. Ted told him he needed to do that before he went into the pub." The three of them laughed a bit at Dean's mistake. "So, now, they're on the run together. They also met up with Dirk Cresswell and a couple of goblins. He said Dirk used to work for the Ministry." "Yeah, I remember the name," Draco said. That night he walked down to Hagrid's hut to meet the other three. "Ah, welcome, you four. I hear there was a bit of funny business up in Snape's office. He sent me an owl, saying you'd be here." Hagrid threw wide the door to welcome them. Fang took the opportunity to slather Draco's robes in drool. "Now, I got to say, I wasn't planning on doing much this evening. Really just a bit of rest. I took the liberty of asking the elves to send us dinner. Hope you don't mind if I didn't cook. Just spent a busy day, you know, cleaning up from the Halloween feast and all." Draco gave a small sigh of relief. Even if the others didn't know it, they had really dodged a jinx right there. Hagrid put 5 butterbeers on the table. Draco reached into his cloak and upped the ante by bringing out some cinnamon-spiced vodka. Ginny Weasley pulled out a bottle of fire whiskey from her robes, with a wry grin. "Well, you all seem thirsty," Neville commented to the group at large, summoning 5 large mugs from a shelf. 3 hours later the party was in full swing, as they began a few rounds of poker, which quickly progressed into an incredibly truthful version of Never Have I Ever. Everyone put down a finger at "got busy outside" on the grounds of the castle, but Draco was the only one who had taken polyjuice. Ginny alone was able to say that she had snogged more than 10 people. Draco was the only one of them to have never ridden a thestral. The 4 of them departed back to the castle, thankful for the sober-up potions that Hagrid had on hand for them. Hagrid was unaffected by them, owing to the fact that he was part giant, but he kept them for visitors after Horace Slughorn had fallen asleep in his bed last year, leading the giant to sleep on the floor with Fang. As they walked back quietly to the castle, whispering and laughing about the time that they'd had, Ginny smirked. "I bet Snape really thought he was getting one over on us, sending us down to Hagrid's as punishment." Draco smiled to himself. Snape had known exactly what he was doing. He shook the Weaselette's hand firmly, then kicked off into the cold, grey, early November sky with the rest of the green-clad Slytherin team. Though he would never say it out loud, because he wouldn't want to jinx himself, Draco felt certain that this was Slytherin's year. They had their most experienced team in several years. They'd been practicing together for years, and a factor that Draco would never verbalize, but that a tiny part of his brain had to admit was important. Potter was not playing for Gryffindor. It was the opening Quidditch match of the year, Slytherin versus Gryffindor. It seemed like it should be an easy win. Instead, it was a hard-fought, scrabble-toothed, bare-knuckled, full-throttled battle. After an hour there was still no snitch in sight, and Slytherin was winning 310 to 180. Weaselette looked murderously at her beaters, who were unable to keep Blaise and the other Slytherins out of the hoops. Draco took a chance, swooping down to rub her nose in it just a bit. But just at that moment, Johnson began a steep downward dive. Too late, Draco turned and gave chase. Later that night in his bed, his handkerchief warmed.
"How was today's match?"
"I prefer not to talk about it."
"Please, offer Ginny my congratulations."
"Ted's meeting up with a few others who were on the run. He's hoping for strength in numbers," Theo informed him. "He once told me about a bloke that was trying to get to Dover, so that he could apparate to Calais. Is that an option for them?" Draco asked. "Don't think so. Ted mentioned how he'd heard from others that they got smart to that, and they set up anti-apparition wards all over the place there." Almost 2 weeks later, in late November, his handkerchief warmed as he lay in bed.
"Ron left."
Draco stared at the words for a full minute before he could formulate a reply. "What the fuck do you mean, Ron left? As in, left you and Potter?"
"Yes. We don't know where he went. We were so excited, we overheard some people talking about the Sword of Gryffindor, and then we learned that the one in Snape's office is fake, and that Dumbledore used the real one to break the ring, and we were just so excited, me and Harry, and Ron was upset. He'd been wearing the locket all day, and it affects him so much, and he just left."
"Hermione, I know. This is all really upsetting, but I don't understand. Can you start over?"
"There was a group of wizards and goblins. One of them was Ted Tonks, another of them was Dean. You know, from our class. They were somewhat close to our tent on the run, just like us."
"Yes, I knew Ted and Dean were together. So what happened?" To her credit, Hermione did not get distracted by that bit of news.
"So Dirk managed to escape from John Dawlish. He's an Auror."
"Yes, I've met him as well. I confronted him during the Ministry takeover, so that he wouldn't give Shacklebolt away."
"That's funny, he actually mentioned that. Dirk did. He said he wanted to thank the wizard that confronted Dawlish."
Draco smiled. "Well, consider me thanked."
She continued, "Right, so the goblin had told Dirk about an incident at Hogwarts, and now Dirk was telling Ted and Dean. Apparently, Ginny and Neville and Luna tried to break into Snape's office to steal the sword. Did you hear about it?"
"Yes, I was their lookout." There was a very long pause.
"You were?"
"Yes, don't be so shocked, Granger. Ginny had Peruvian instant darkness powder to make sure the portraits didn't see them, so they needed my hand of glory. I didn't go in, just stayed in the corridor to stop anyone else from going in." An even longer pause.
"Wow. Just wow. I had no idea that you and Ginny even spoke to each other, much less that you were planning Heist together."
"Jealous, my? You thought I only planned Heist with you, didn't you?"
"You are playing nicely with my friends. You are helping them, even. I'm more than a little turned on, if I'm being honest."
"Which? Don't say that to me. It's been months. I'm dealing with a very short fuse here."
"Funny. It never really seemed very short to me."
He huffed. "You know what I mean."
"How do you think I'm doing? I've been living in a freezing cold tent with two of the smelliest, most unhygienic... Ugh, I'm getting distracted. Never mind. Well, as I was saying, we heard about the attempted sword heist, and then we asked Phineas Black about the sword, and that's when we realized the sword can... Well, that is to say, we need the sword."
Draco filed that bit of information away to mull over later. He answered, "I take it that's something to do with this search. So how does all this cause Weasley to do a bunk?"
Harry and we were going back and forth with ideas, and he felt left out."
This fucking wanker. Two people have a simple discussion, and this ginger fuck just dips out, as though the two of them haven't been there for him, helping him succeed despite his obvious mediocrity, standing up for him for years. Draco wrote back, "Do you know where he went? Is he coming back?"
"The wards prevent him from seeing the tent, and us, as long as we're inside the bounds, but he knows where we are. He can apparate back and we would see and hear him. He's just chosen not to."
Draco didn't think he had ever hated the Weasel as much as he did right now. The handkerchief warmed again with another message from Hermione.
"We can't do anything about it. It's up to Ron to make the right decision. But we're moving on to a new location tomorrow. Once we move, he won't know where we are to find us anymore."
A corner of the handkerchief grew damp, and Draco knew she was crying. He could throttle Weasley with his bare hands for this. The handkerchief warmed again.
"Please, don't tell Ginny about Ron leaving. I'm sure she'll see him at Christmas. He can offer his explanations then."
Draco sighed. Yes, he supposed he would spare the Weaselette that indignity, at least. To have your cowardly brother run out on your boyfriend and best friend when they were out there searching for whatever the hell it was. She'd mentioned a ring. What was that? The sword had been used to break a ring. But why? And why was wearing the locket affecting Weasley? "So, you need this sword. Why?"
"It's got powerful magic. We think it can destroy things."
"These things that can bring down the Dark Lord?"
"Right. But we don't know where the sword is."
You know the one in Professor Snape's office is fake, is that right?" Clearly she had known this, as otherwise the secrecy bond would have prevented him from saying it.
"Right. The goblin recognized that the one Professor Snape brought to Gringotts for safekeeping was fake. But where is the real one?"
"I don't know. I'll ask him."
"Thank you. So, were you part of the punishment, too? Did Hagrid have you cross-fertilizing Jarvies and Graphorns?"
"Don't even joke, my nightmares after the Scroots were bad enough. No, in fact we all just had dinner and played games. I learned a lot. For instance, Both Hagrid and Neville have gone streaking, but only Luna has ever participated in a threesome.
These are not the games we've been playing in the tent. It's pretty much just exploding snap and wizard's chess.
I've been telling you for years, you should get better friends. So, Ted sounded all right?
Yes, why?
I was with him when he went on the run. Tonks was visiting him, and I was helping her to get to him, since she could no longer apparate because of the baby. She got hurt, and Ted had to come and check on her. He made me swear I'd protect her. I felt so awful, knowing I couldn't protect him too, after this summer.
With your muggle-born hunting team?
Right.
Draco, you did all you could, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hopefully Teddy understands that one day.
Who's Teddy?
Oops. Shit. Draco wasn't sure of the proper etiquette for this, but he felt like sharing someone else's baby news might be stepping on Tonks and Remus's toes. But in for a Knut, in for a Gallion. That's Lupin and Tonks's baby when he's born.
Oh my god, Draco! That's wonderful to hear!
Don't share that with anyone. Pretty sure I wasn't supposed to tell that.
The only people I would tell would not believe how I got the information anyway.
That's true.
I need to go. I love you, Draco. Good night.
Good night, Mai. I love you too. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great78.